My fellow Toastmasters and guests. We have a few of those too, maybe. I hope you are all having a great weekend. And this is a wonderful opportunity we have tonight to present some of the best speakers in the entire world, not just in our district, but the world are here today to share with you not just why they competed and what it took for them to get to the top. And we're here also to answer your questions. So that if you have questions, you can put it into the chat room, or we'll have time for you to unmute and ask your questions personally. But the whole point of tonight's session is to encourage people, everyone in Toastmasters, even if you're brand new, like I've got one of my brand new club members here, Aaron, and I'm thrilled that he's here. And we've got a couple of people here that are new to Toastmasters. They could get involved with the contest season that's coming up in this next beginning of the new year. From January through May, we have a series of contests, from our club contest to our area contest to our division contest, up until our district contest, which will be May 29th through 31st. And the contest is on that, I believe, May 30th, that Saturday night. We will have two contests this year. These will be our international speech contest that we do every year. And we have decided to have a special evaluation contest, of which anybody in Toastmasters can participate in, where you'll have one prepared speaker, and then everyone will compete to evaluate that speaker. And this will be through each of those different levels. And I would love to encourage everyone in Toastmasters to get involved with either being a competitor, to speak for their club and move up, or to participate in the planning of these contests. So we have all sorts of needs in the contest, from everything from the contest chair to a chief judge to people who want to learn to judge, which I think is a wonderful. If you're not going to actually become a speaker, become a judge. It is an amazing way to learn how to become an amazing speaker. Every speaker you're going to hear today are some of the best. And when they get up there with their speeches, how do you even decide who's better than the next? They're all so amazing. That's what makes these contests so much fun. But when you become a judge, you can learn what it takes to actually make that slight difference between one over the other and try to have an impact. We also have other role players in those meetings, such as timers and sergeants at arms and all sorts of people who put this together. Sometimes they have food at these events, and you have people who help out with that. So we need all of our clubs to get involved. And so if you're in a club or two right now that has not been in a contest in the last couple of years, I would encourage you to go back and say, hey, this is coming up in another 2 months. Let's get on board. But tonight, we have some very special speakers who are going to share with you their experience as they went to the very top. Everyone who will be speaking tonight has gone to beyond the district, so they've won the district contest and competed at multiple levels, all the way to the top, some coming in number 2, some coming in number 1. So the whole point is, though, is that what motivated them? What did they learn from this? And what can they tell us to get us excited to get involved? So let me start with our panelist, our first panelist. By the way, I did hear from one of our panelists who was unable to make it tonight. It was Amy Samet, and Amy will be joining us as a recording. She made a wonderful recording of her speech and asked us to play that. But our two primary speakers then tonight is our world champion of public speaking in 2024, Lisa Montalvo, and she'll be followed by Lisa Traugott, who has also been a champion near the very top. And then we will also have one more a recording of Amy Samet's speech, and then open it up to questions and answers. So let me go ahead and introduce Luisa, if you would. And if somebody would mute the one person who might need to be muted, that would be helpful. Let me get this information. Okay, so welcome everybody. Our first speaker tonight is Luisa Montalvo. Luisa was born and raised in South Texas. She later moved to Austin, Texas, where she worked at Abbott Laboratories for 25 years. She retired at the age of 53 and has been busy rescuing homeless dogs and cats and driving them to New York for the past 4 years. She has fostered and cared for over 850 homeless dogs. She first joined Toastmasters in 1989 for 3 years when she worked at Abbott Labs. She then rejoined in 2013 and has been a member ever since. She completed in 2019 in the Toastmasters World Class of Public Speaking against 33,000 other contestants from 143 countries. She made it to the final stage, where she was awarded first runner-up that year. As for many of you who may know that, despite a life-threatening accident that she had since then, where she was told she would probably never fully recover, she has put that behind her and also had to deal with the losses of some very close people in this most recent year. And she was inspired in 2024 to get back up on stage, and she went on to win the World Championship of Public Speaking. Please welcome Luisa Montalvo.
Thank you. Am I audible?
You are.
I see you, Amy. Amy Espinosa. Why compete? Really, why compete? My question to you, why not? So what is involved in competing? Well, first of all, in my instance, you have to have had a mother who challenged you at every step in your life. I remember I was about 4 or 5 years old. We were leaving the grocery store, and my mother looked at me as we were walking out to the car, and she says, "Luisa, I'll race you." Then she takes off running. I take off running too. Did she beat me? Of course she did. Did she continue to challenge me all through my life? Yes, she did. And I am so glad she did, because she was the one that instilled the competitiveness in me. Anything and everything I did after that, it was a competition. I absolutely love to compete. But you're thinking, Luisa, that's not me. I want to be behind the scenes. I really don't even want to participate. So let me ask you this. Is it fear that you have of actually giving a speech? Is it fear that you're going to lose? Is it fear that you might get on stage and forget your entire speech? What is it? Why is it you wouldn't want to compete? Well, let me tell you something. Everything that I mentioned there has happened to me. In fact, I started competing when I was in high school. And to me, high school was awesome. And I'll tell you why. With competition in high school, guess what? When the judges judged you, they showed you the sheet after with their evaluations. Guess what? On a lot of those evaluations, I still remember the first time I competed when I was a senior in high school. The page, the evaluation sheet from the judge said, "Luisa, great job, humorous. You had us engaged. But next time, maybe you should wear a dress." That was 1977. We've come a long way, thank God. But a lot of those evaluations made me realize that when I did not win, it wasn't something I should take personal. It was something that the judges saw in their eyes, that they felt they had to critique me. Now, don't get me wrong. When I get critiques and evaluations from people, I listen, because there's a reason they're telling you what they're telling you. But back to the things that I had mentioned about why don't you compete? I remember in 1989, when I was about to compete for my first year. I had joined in 1987, but in 1989, I started to compete. My goal, believe it or not, back then was to take home first place in table topics, first in evaluation, first in humorous, first in international, all in the same year. Spoiler alert, it didn't happen that way. In fact, in 1989, when I got on stage, you see, Friday night, I had won table topics. So here it was Saturday, 1989 district. It's in Corpus Christi. I've got the funniest speech, and I know I'm going to win. I get on stage, and 2 minutes into my speech, yep, you guessed it, I completely forgot everything. I even tried to restart my speech. Nothing. I was blank, coming up with a blank. I had 400 people looking at me like this. Yep, didn't feel good. I looked at the audience and said, well, I guess it's done. And I walked off. I was upset. I was angry. I was mad. I wanted to cry. I was so furious. And then I realized that this is part of the learning curve. You see, now, every time I get on stage, it's there in the back of my mind. Luisa, remember your speech. It only made me practice more, made sure that no matter if there was an interruption or anything, I was going to be able to continue and finish my speech. Because just like Nelson Mandela says, you either win or you learn. So what is hard about competing? I'll tell you what I like. I have come in third. There are some contests I didn't even place. In fact, to be quite honest, I've lost over 40 contests. The thing is, whenever we lose at anything, whether it's a job or a contest or relationship, we tend to take it personally. And that's not it. You see, we just weren't the right fit for that one thing. So when I realized that, you see, the first time that I didn't place, that first year I competed in 1989, I drove home. I was mad. I was crying. I was angry. I was upset. I said, you know what? I'm done with Toastmasters. Forget it. I should have won the contest and I didn't. Their loss. Not a good attitude to have. So I said, Luisa, go back and try again and again and again and again. But you know what's pretty cool? This is one thing I love about Toastmasters. You see, when you go to school all the way up to high school, all your peers, you're all the same age. I mean, in high school, graduating, you're either 17 or 18 or maybe even 19. But then you go to Toastmasters, and here you have people from all over the world, all over in your district, all different ages, all different races, all different backgrounds. So it's pretty cool to be able to see that you are now not competing with somebody in the same age bracket as you. Now it's different. It's a free-for-all. It's up to anybody to be able to compete. But why compete? For me, it's easy. I want to win. And if I don't win, that's okay too. Because every time I give a speech, I try to leave my audience with a lesson for them to be a little more knowledgeable than when I first started my speech. Believe it or not, back in 1990, I gave a speech. And there's a couple in Toastmasters, and they've been in Toastmasters for years. And it's the Storkeys. I believe they're from Australia. Miss Storkey came up to me 10 years after I gave a speech, and she said, Luisa, I still remember that speech you gave about your mother making those itchy dresses that you had to wear when you were a kid. I said, you remember that? She said, yes. I said, did you know I didn't even place at that contest? She said, really? I said, yes. Could you tell me what the first place winner spoke about? She couldn't. And that right there told me everything. You see, a trophy is nice to have, but you can go buy a trophy if you have to. But for someone to come up to you 10 years later and say, I remember when you said this. Wow, that is just powerful. So you're thinking, well, Luisa, I mean, I'm really not the competitive type. Okay. Did you know? And I'll be quite honest with you. I loved competing because if I hadn't competed, they were going to ask me to be the chief judge or the timer or the ballot counter or the sergeant at arms. Do you know for every one person that competes, there are so many people behind the scenes that need to get everything done. And it's kind of like a TV talk show where you've got one person in front of the camera and everybody else is working out everything. And it's pretty cool the way everything comes together. The one beauty of Toastmasters that I have learned and I've seen is that no matter where you want to sign up in Toastmasters, you're going to learn something. Now, you might have not joined to compete, but why not? I mean, there's a friend of mine that came up and he called me and says, Luisa, guess what? I said, what? He goes, I came in second. I said, really? That's great. He said, well, there were only 2 of us competing. I said, but you still came in second, right? And he still talks about that to this day. In fact, he's our division director, Frank. He's a great guy. He never knew how much fun it was to compete. Again, it's not for everybody, but why not? And getting back to where you are actually competing against everybody, different ages, different creeds, different everything. I remember I would show up to a contest and it would be division. And so now I'm out of my area and I see the same people competing. And you know what? I would look at them and I would say, oh man, Grace is competing. Gosh, I've got to be good. And it was really good because it was powerful. I knew that I had to come with my best game. I would see somebody, they had beaten me before. I didn't want them to beat me again. So I kept improving and improving and improving. And that's what contests do to you. Not only do they help you get over the fear of competing or being in front of an audience, but they make you get better. And look, you're probably thinking, well, I tried it and I did it a few years and it just didn't work. I've been competing for the last 13 years. I wanted to eventually be #1. I, quite honestly, never thought I was going to get there, but I did. And I'm so glad I didn't give up. So whatever reason you are thinking of competing, it's going to be good. I guarantee you, if you lose, hey, at least you tried it. If you win, there you go. Now we're talking. Whether you want to be behind the scenes, whether you want to compete, chief judge, whatever it is you want to do, I encourage you, just try it once. Because believe it or not, one of these days, you just might wind up being the world champion. Back to you, Bart.
Thank you very much for that very inspiring speech, Luisa. We have a few minutes where I wanted to see if some people have some specific questions for you. And I had one while I'm thinking about it. It's like, well, now that you are the world champion of public speaking and you can't compete anymore, not in this area, what is your next type of competition? Where are you pushing yourself to the next level at this point?
That's a good question, Bart. I think I still can compete in humorous. I'm not sure because I don't, it's not so much that I want to win. I'm just addicted to competing. But I think the next step for me, I'm considering writing a book. And I believe that's probably what I'm going to be doing. And then also taking it to the next level of being able to be a professional public speaker or motivational speaker. That's probably going to be my next step up, hopefully.
Excellent. Well, I don't think you'd be limited in terms of the other contests. You just can't be an international speaker, but I would love to see you back in the humorous contest. Those are always so much fun.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And who else does anybody have any questions at this point? We've got about another minute or so where we could ask a couple questions.
What about TEDx? Luisa, you're great. You're the world champion. We don't want to see you in the humorous contest. You're already the champ. Thank you. I think no judge would not be biased. And, hey, that's just my opinion as a competitor. And I'm so glad you won the world title because, I got 6 friends that I rubbed elbows with that are world champions. You're one of them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't need to be in the humorous contest. No, that's all right. Yeah. But TED Talks.
Okay.
What about TEDx Talks?
Yes.
That
I would
helps
love
you
to
on
do
the
that.
motivational gigs.
I would love to do that. Absolutely. That's great. I'm glad you mentioned that because that is there on the bucket list.
All right, taking it to the next level. Thank you very much for that, Michael. Other questions?
I would like Luisa to do some district leadership, like an area director. Sometime soon.
We'll have to take that offline, I believe. But
challenge, Luisa.
But I certainly encourage everyone to
I love that
take
idea.
their leadership to a new level as well. Yeah.
She's ready.
And she's very inspiring. So that's the whole point. A great leader just needs people who are willing to follow, and you already have that. So almost anything you want to do, people will follow you.
Why would she start at the bottom with area director? Just go straight to district director, Luisa.
Well, but of course, and that sounds like Wendy Lord. Is that who that is?
It is. It is.
It was.
What about
Oh,
the
look at
Daily
this.
Show and all this big stuff in New York? Like I figured when I win the world championship, I'm going on Jimmy Fallon the next night. Did you get any of that fun stuff?
I haven't gotten that yet. I don't know. Maybe it's because I never check my emails. But you know what? I think after tonight, after this meeting, I'm gonna run to my computer and look
There's
up
a
all
lot
my
of
emails.
shows in the morning. One of my friends is a comedian in Houston. He's a comedy cop, and they had fireman comedians on one of those morning talk shows. And then someone looked up cop comedians. They brought him up to New York, and boom, 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 boom. I was like, damn, that looks right. It's sweet on his resume, you know. Like, I don't
That
know
is
what
awesome.
I think it was on Ellen and some other. He was on two
Oh
of them up there.
wow, good for
You know,
him.
they don't have Ellen anymore, but there's an equivalent of all that.
And-
Put your
and-
media people on it. I know you got feelers out there, but
Yeah,
you'd
I
be
think instead
perfect.
of the being the cop comedian, I'll have to do something with dogs. How's that?
Yeah,
Do
well, I
that.
tell you what, you're perfect for that. Yeah, you got a message. You could be delivered out there.
Well, and to round this out, Luisa, since I just did a seminar just before this on delegation, when you have an area that's not your top skill, you can always delegate it to someone else. So if you're really wanting to take this to a next level and watching your emails and doing the business end of it is not your thing, you'll need to get somebody who can help you do that. So that's probably something I'll encourage you to take that next step, is get people you can trust to help you build your career. But
Thank
thank you
you.
very much for a wonderful speech. And I want to move on to our next speaker because we've got some wonderful skills here. And our next speaker is actually a best-selling author you'll hear more about. Lisa Traugott writes dark, witchy tales of women who won't be silenced. I love that. Her #1 Amazon hit, To Condemn a Witch, follows the award-nominated To Rescue a Witch. Her memoir, called She's Losing It, which is like a Rocky for moms, led her to being cast on the reality TV show American Grit, hosted by John Cena. She's the current Vice President of Education for Arthur Storer Toastmasters, previously led the District 55 Speakers Bureau, and was a semifinalist in the 2021 World Championship of Public Speaking. Her favorite filler word is so, which I can so relate to that. When she's not writing or speaking, she uses her mom magic to get her kids to do their homework. Please welcome Lisa Traugott.
As a storyteller, it's our job to grab the audience by the throat, take them on an adventure, and never let go until the story ends. In 2020, I was working as a personal trainer, and surprise, surprise, COVID happened and the gym closed and I lost my job. So with all of this extra time, I thought, I'm going to work on my speech. So I decided I was going to reach out to 5 of the former world champions of public speaking and see if they would mentor me. And they did. So today I'm going to give you some advice that I learned from them. You can take this advice and you can apply it to your own competition speeches. So advice number 1 was from Mike Carr, and he won in 2020. And his advice was, create memorable moments. If you haven't seen his speech, it was brilliant. It was the first time that everything was on Zoom. And I'd say one of the most memorable moments, well, there were 2 very memorable moments. The first one was where he started. So most people start right here in the middle. He started over here and he was like a little kid sneaking up. So that caught everybody off. And then there was a scene where he was talking about a movie projector not working, and he went like this against the thing, and it just seemed like it was a flickering old-timey movie. So it was unexpected, and it created these interesting moments. And so when he was working with me, he said, you should do that. My speech that took me all the way to the semifinals was called Along Came a Spider. And it was a juxtaposition of my 4-year-old daughter, who was terrified of spiders, and we were at the bottom of this mountain, like a hill, and she couldn't get up because she was afraid that spiders would bite her. And I juxtapose that with when that I could relate to that that intense fear because I used to be afraid to speak in public. And I said it was like, have you ever been so afraid it felt like you were stuck in a spider web that you spun yourself? And then someone comes up to you and says, I'm going to teach you to see yourself the way that I see you. And that was a moment, a visual moment that I was able to create on Zoom. So advice number one, create a strong moment. Tip from guru number two, world champion Ed Tate. He recommended that if I wanted to be a better storyteller, I really needed to study my craft. And he suggested that I read the book Made to Stick. And in that book, there's a story which, well, you might have heard it before. If you have, just shh, but let me tell it to you. So basically, he was stuck in an airport and the flights were canceled. So it landed in Atlantic City in New Jersey. So he went to the hotel, and while he was there was an attractive woman who came by and said, "Can I buy you a drink?" Now, this woman in the red dress, as he kind of funnily relates, he's not the kind of person who typically got asked anything or paid attention to by a beautiful woman in a red dress. So, he was a little nervous, but he said, "Okay, sure." And she said, "Let me get you a drink and let me fix it for you in my room." So he followed her up, took the sip, and then he went completely blank. When he woke up, he was freezing, sitting in a tub of bath, shivering. He was completely disoriented. He looked over, and beside the tub was a note and a cell phone. And it said, "Please call this number." So he was very confused, and he called the number and he said, "Hello, I'm supposed to call you." And the operator said, are you calling from a hotel? Are you maybe in a tub of ice?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "Hold on, the ambulance will be on the way. This is a kidney heist. And there's a band of people, they've been going and stealing kidneys." Now that story is a complete lie. It's an urban legend. And it was very popular in the 1990s. Now, what made this story so good is that it had three key ingredients. It had characters that were relatable. Without me even describing what the woman looked like, did you have sort of an image in your mind of what she looked like? Probably. There's a sense of heightened emotion. So there was fear about waking up and being disoriented. And then a lot of the emotions can also tie to some of our judgments. So sometimes when the story is told, the man is married and he is going to the room with this other woman. So then it becomes sort of a morality tale, which makes a lot of people angry. So it ties into those sort of real base emotions. And the third thing is that it includes sensory details. So the shiver of the ice and going and seeing the red dress. So really specific things. When you're giving a speech, you want to go and include some of these sensory details because they make your speech more memorable and more relatable. And to tie back to his tip, if you want to be a better storyteller, study your craft, study what makes a good speech interesting. Guru tip number 3 is from Mark Brown. A lot of you might be wondering, well, what do I talk about? I'm not going to talk about a kidney heist. So his advice was this exercise. So right now, just kind of close your eyes and picture a 5-year-old child whom you love. It can be your own child, it can be a nephew, it can be a neighbor's kid. Now, imagine that you were never going to see that child again because you were moving. What advice would you give to that child? What do you want them to take away? And the reason that he had me do this exercise was, he said, a speech needs to have universal themes. Because when you're telling a story, even though you might be telling something specific to you, it needs to relate to all audience members, at least on some level. So you want to go and tie into not just a story, but like Luisa was saying, you want it to have a broader theme. You want to give some sort of tips or some sort of advice that anybody can relate to. Guru number 4 is from Darren LaCroix, and his advice was stage time, stage time, stage time, which is you have to practice your speech a lot. Now, this was really interesting because I was practicing my speech during COVID. So nothing was open. I could not do live presentations at all, but I could go into Zoom calls. And so what I ended up doing was I contacted Toastmaster clubs all over the world. So I practiced my speech in London, in Nigeria, in Australia, Japan, and then also coast to coast, California and Washington, D.C. and Texas, and then like Canada. So just all over. And the thing that was really interesting about that is people from different countries have different perspectives. So a joke that might land really well in Texas would be very confusing in Nigeria. Also, one of the things that I was talking about in my speech about the spiders, my daughter stomped on the spiders. Well, there are a lot of countries that would be offended by that, by hurting an animal. And so I added a line to my speech that said, please note, no actual spiders were injured during this presentation. So you just want to make sure that you're aware of your audience. Also, a thing to remember is when you're doing an international speech, as you start going up, you're not just speaking to people in Texas, you're speaking internationally, where sometimes English is a second language. So I'm a person who tends to talk really fast when I get excited. That's not good. Not if you want people to understand. So you always want to put your audience first and make sure that your points are landing. And final tip from Guru number 5. This was from World Champion Prez Vasilev, which is you learn how to give better speeches by evaluating other speeches. And which ties in perfectly for this year, because even if you don't want to do the international speech, right now it's the evaluation speech. So what he did when he was trying to become better was he went onto YouTube, and a lot of times people post their speeches, like this is my Toastmaster speech. So he would watch their speech, and then he would write down and start critiquing it. And then he would contact them either through message or email and just saying, hey, I watched your speech. Here's some pointers. And then by going and watching speeches, he was able to go and become a better speaker himself. Now, why should you compete? Well, there's an ancient Chinese proverb that says, hear and forget, see and remember, do and understand. When you compete, your growth as a speaker, as a storyteller, grows exponentially because you are focused not just on yourself, but on relating to your audience. You open yourself up for feedback. You you try and find ways to grow. Now, even if you don't win, and I did not win, like Luisa said, sometimes people will come up to you afterwards. So one of the speech that I didn't win, actually Mike Carr won, it was a speech called Mile 17. And I was talking about my dad, and he had recently passed away, and I decided I was going to run the Marine Corps Marathon for him in his honor. But then I injured myself and I was exhausted. And by the time I got to mile 17, I was ready to quit. And there was a Marine standing on the hill. He looked like Denzel Washington, and he called out to me. Now, everybody who runs, they have these bubble paint, and so you write your name on your shirt. And so mine said Lisa, and on the other side it said, "For Dad." And this Marine, who I had never met, said, "Lisa, I see you. And I see you're running for your dad. I know you can do this. And he knows you can do this too." And then I was able to finish the race. Now, even though I didn't win that competition, people, and I gave that speech in 2020, right? So 5 years ago, people still come up to me and they say, "Can you come to my club? Can you give that speech again?" I get chills thinking about that. And I remember at first, feeling really, really bad that I didn't win. And I remember thinking, I'm not going to compete again, because that was literally the best speech I ever made in my life. And I thought, well, if my speech isn't good enough, then why should I keep talking? And it wasn't until I went to a chili bake, where it was in Pflugerville. They have this chili bake every September, and there were all of these different things, and they all tasted wonderful. But any one of them could have won, but only one of them did win. And it was then when I realized that, who wins, who loses, it's subjective. But by them doing a chili bake, can you imagine if they said, "Well, I'm never going to cook again"? Well, then nobody would get that nourishment. And even if you don't win, your message can resonate for years. I would encourage you to try and compete. And if you're feeling, well, maybe I don't want to go and do the international one, then definitely do the evaluation one. You're going to learn so much by doing this. And also, if you don't want to speak, I would also encourage you to judge a competition. I've been judging a ton of competitions, and it's another way of seeing, you get to see the list of how people, the criteria of how they're being judged. And so that's very valuable, and they're always looking for judges. So whether you compete in the international, or you compete in the evaluation, or you help out behind the scenes as a judge, I would recommend that you continue this process. Grab your people by the throat, tell your story, share your story, and never let go until you're ready to take a bow.
Thank you very much for that incredibly inspiring speech as well. Thank you, Lisa. She basically says it all. I mean, how many of us have given a speech maybe once, sometimes twice, but never 5 times, 10 times, 20 times? Imagine where you can take this when you are going for that level. And so that's one of the things that that she certainly makes this very clear, how good you can get at your story and how impactful it can be when you've practiced it and take it to that new level. I do want to ask you one question, Lisa, before, and then we'll open it up to questions and answers after the final speaker. But I did want to wonder, how has this journey as a speaker helped you in your work with writing your books?
Oh, it's amazing. The main thing is, you just like when you're speaking, you're giving a 5 to 7 minute speech, but the most important thing is really the first 30 seconds. You win or lose in the first 30 seconds. When you write a book, you win or lose on that first page, because if the first page is boring, nobody's going to turn the page. And so it has made me a better storyteller.
Thank you so much for that. And next we will, we're going to have a recording of Amy Samet's speech. So if you would set that up, Ava, and I'll deliver Amy's intro. Amy Samet has been a Toastmaster for 27 years. And in that time, she's been a member of 9 different clubs, and she's made it to district level competitions 15 times. I know I've traveled with her through many clubs, following her around and learning from her as her incredible skill as a humorist, her skill as a speaker. She's always just amazed me. And she's been a club officer in her own humble estimation about 1 million times. I don't know if it's really 1 million, but that's what it seems like to her. I certainly encourage others to step up to club officers as well as in learning everything you can about Toastmasters. Her Toastmasters skills have served as a springboard to many other gigs. She's been a teacher, a trainer, a coach, keynote speaker, charity benefit MC, stand-up comedian, and garage sale facilitator. So I want to welcome Amy Samet's speech, and she recorded this yesterday, and I loved it. So she will present that here.
I am very excited to be here with you tonight and on this panel with Luisa and Lisa and Bart. And I'm here tonight to encourage you to compete in next season's competition. Weirdly, I'm going to start this little presentation with a story about a horrible experience I had with a contest. I competed in the humorous speech contest back in 2005. I was lucky enough to win at my club. I won in my area. I won a division. I was going great guns. I couldn't wait to win at district. It was going to be glorious. I couldn't wait. Except that I didn't win. I came in second. Oh, I was torn apart. I cried all the way home. My entire self-image was bound up in winning this contest. I just didn't know how I could go on. My plan was to never go back to Toastmasters, never compete in a contest again, never go to a meeting again, just never show my face because I was such a loser. Next thing I knew, I was coming up with a new plan, which revolved around things that I could control. I couldn't quit Toastmasters because I was a Toastmasters junkie. So what I looked at was, what can I have in my power? I could put myself in charge of having a good time. Nobody can stop me from having a good time giving my speech. I wanted to be sure the audience had a good time. And I wanted to be sure that I put forth a performance that I could be proud of. Those things were in my control. And of course, I went back to competition. A few years later, I won the district competition for international speech. I won it again 2 years later. I won it this year. So it wasn't the end of the road for me. And today, I want to give you 10 good reasons to compete. First of all, winning. Winning is dope. Even though you can't control it, when it does happen, it's the greatest. It is the highest compliment. It is amen and hallelujah. Number 2 reason to compete. Even if you don't win, you get so much encouragement and reassurance from the positive response you get to your speech. You get clapping, you get applause, people pay attention to you, people praise you, and that's a lot of positive strokes. That's always a good thing. Number 3, you learn. From giving your speech, you learn what parts of it are working well. You learn what makes the audience laugh, what makes them smile, what holds their attention. And you can take that knowledge to your next speech. Use more of the things that are working well for you. Number 4, you improve. Now, this isn't exactly the same as learning. Learning is when you understand what your speech needs to be better, and improving is when you actually do it. And you will get the reinforcement from the audience. You'll hear from people who are listening to your speech that it's better, and you will win more when you improve. The 5th reason to participate in a speech contest is that from obsessing about winning, you're going to take a lot of steps that are very constructive. You're going to study the speeches of other people. You're going to talk to other winners about how they did it. You're going to study their preparation. You can learn about what philosophy they have when they compete. So take that skill that you use for winning contests. And if you're obsessive, you can take your obsession into other areas of your life, like sports or business. And just ask yourself, what did I do to be successful at contests when I had all this obsessive energy, and how can I channel that into other areas of my life? Number 6 reason to compete: brain benefits. Figuring out how to write a winning speech and how to perform a winning speech, how to deliver a winning speech. Those things keep your brain active. It's like solving a puzzle. This will keep your brain sharp, and it's never done. It's never done. Year after year, what new thing can I bring to an audience? What higher skill can I bring? How can I get bigger laughs? How can I use pausing more, etc., etc.? You're always working to solve a puzzle, so your brain is active. And again, if you do it year after year, as I have done for 20 years, it wards off the senility, which is nice. It's a nice goal. Next, I'm on reason number 7. When you compete in a contest, you are contributing to a team effort. You're part of the contest team. A lot of people do a lot to make a contest happen. A contest chair, all the role players, the vote counters, the sergeant at arms. You're part of a team. You contribute to the effort. Your speech will add more talent to the contest, more diversity to it, more content to it. It's going to make the contest more interesting. So you're not the best speaker. You're still part of a team effort. Number 8, speaking to a Toastmasters audience is a wonderful experience. They are the world's best audience. They are attentive, they are supportive, they are positive, they will look at you while you're talking. You will not necessarily get that at a professional speaking gig. They've got a whole different attitude about paying for you and expecting a return on their investment, whereas Toastmasters, they're just good people. World's best audience. Number 9, you will learn to be a gracious winner. Here's how to be a gracious winner. You praise all the other contestants. They were all wonderful. You praise the organizers of the contest. They put in so much time and energy to make it a success. You praise all the role players. You praise the audience. You praise everyone who was involved, because it was a team effort and everybody did good. And number 10, you will learn how to be a gracious loser. Here's the formula for being a gracious loser. You praise all the other contestants. You say they were wonderful. You praise the people who organized the contest, because a lot of time and energy went into it. You praise the role players. You praise the audience. You make it a positive experience for everyone who was there. And if you notice some similarities between number 9 and number 10, you should. That's being a good Toastmaster. I will end with, I firmly and strongly recommend that you compete. It's nothing but a great experience. And again, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Amy. What a wonderful presentation. All three, we've learned so much and so many different aspects of competition and Toastmasters contests and such. I thought we'll open it up at this time to some Q&A for both Lisa and Luisa. So if you have some questions, you can either unmute yourself or you can put it into the chat room. I had a couple questions that I wanted to know, but if somebody has a question at this time, just raise your hands and let us know. I think, Amy, did you have a question? Amy Espinoza?
Sorry, stepped away for a second. So no, I don't have a question. I'm just so thankful that you guys did this, and I'm glad that you are recording it, because this was valuable. So impressive, all of you guys. Just awesome. Thank you so much for putting this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy. And I have one question for both of our speakers. One is, what surprised you most about competing? Something you didn't expect that you learned most or surprised you? What surprised you most? Who would like to go first?
You go first.
What surprised me the most is that I'm one of the biggest happy-go-lucky people. And, if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. But I thought I was good enough to win without practicing. And when I found out I couldn't win without practicing, that's when I actually had to get serious about something And I realized the more serious I got about it, the more I wanted to win. But I'm the kind of person that, well, if I'm good enough, I'm good enough. If I'm not, I'm not, and move on. But this Toastmaster challenged me. And I did forget to mention that even through the toughest times in my life, which have been, like you said, the last 3 years, I don't know what I would have done without Toastmasters, because had it not been for me competing all those years, I'm not sure what I would have done. I'm just very grateful for the organization. But yeah, I thought I was, hey, you know what? I'll just show up and say something and I'm good. And that didn't work. So I actually had to sit down, buckle down and study, practice, and try to get better.
Great. Thank you, Luisa. How about for you, Lisa? What was the thing that surprised you the most in your journey?
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting about the gurus that I spoke to. They all practice their speech a minimum of 100 times. And a lot of times, I just sort of write things on the fly and, give a speech, and I'll have some points and I'll like summarize them. But no, it's like you really have to work on your script. So one of the techniques that Prez taught me was you really have to look at your script and you have to look at the word count, and you want to make every word count. So instead of saying he ran fast, it would be better to say he sped. Or, instead of saying, he ran slow, just say he sauntered. So you try and choose more interesting verbs.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. As every time you improve a speech, it's amazing how many things you can change, including the words, how you say those words, and how you look saying those words. And every piece of that makes a difference. So that's why they work so hard at that. I see Michael's got a question. Michael Flato. Unmute, please. He's got his hand up. Anybody else have their hand up at this time? I'll ask another question if I don't hear from Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had the mute on.
Yes.
I'm rusty on these Zooms.
Okay. No worries.
Man,
I have other questions.
I just gave
so
you guys
go for
the
it.
biggest kudos in the world, man. Thank you both for being here. Thank you, Bart, for putting it together. I love the gratitude message that came out on Amy's deal, and I'm in the club. Do that speech 100 times. I mean, I'm out there. That's what I'm doing. Boom, boom. I'm laying it out. My comedy routine 100 times. Boom, throw it out there for sure. I was curious. Both of you are right next to each other on my gallery screen. Both of you wearing purple. Okay, so what's going on there? Is there some subconscious level, super secret tips to win the world title that you guys aren't sharing?
We were texting each other before. What are you going to wear?
And I told her purple is for royalty, and we are both royalty. So there you go.
Somebody just gave me a purple shirt. I think I'll try it.
That's that little extra edge to take you up to just notch past everyone else. Well, I do want to ask a question. Many Toastmasters think contests are only for the naturals. Some people think, oh, I could never do that because look, they're so natural at that. What would you say to someone who doubts that they're good enough to enter a contest?
I think everybody has a story to tell. And it's not about being an actor for years and years or having done tons of things. Sometimes the best stories are just by somebody like your grandma, who's just sitting at the kitchen table telling you about the one time that they almost lost the family farm, and those are the stories that stick. So everybody has stories that stick, and those stories really need to be shared because, it can go and touch somebody's life and it can change somebody's life. And so I think everybody can be a winner.
How about for you, Luisa?
Great question. And it's kind of the tortoise and the hare, where the hare thinks they're good enough, They don't have to practice. They don't have to study. They don't have, they're a natural. And then you get somebody that's been doing hours and hours and hours of preparation. And what happens? They beat you. So being a natural is almost the worst thing you could be, because you think you don't have to practice. You don't have to get better. You don't need to be good because you're already good. But your competition, the ones that really want to take you down, they're not natural, but they're going to fight to try to beat you. And they usually do, because being a natural is not all it takes to win. So I learned that. Oh, yeah.
Well, as somebody who's been a judge at both division contests and the district contests, it's like, how do you decide they're all so amazing at that level?
Mhm.
And one thing I've always encouraged people is everyone's got great stories that have a big impact on other people's lives. All you have to really do is just go online to AI or just ask, what are the 25 most impactful life lessons that people learn as human beings? And you could go on there and probably, based on most all of those, say, there's a speech in every single one of those life lessons. I've had this happen to me. This was my experience, and this is the lesson I learned that I could teach to others, which I see is probably the number one skill or the number one impact that most of these top speakers in the world have, is they're actually teaching a universal life lesson but how they did it, how life taught them this lesson. And so keeping it personal, but also universal. And how many of you, do you have some other speeches that you've got? Because I know you've had to give, well, anyone who gets to the top has to have a multitude of speeches. How do you come up with what your universal lesson is?
Actually, for me, I'm sure Lisa's going to want to answer also, but for me, I wake up every morning and I say, okay, Luisa, you're going to learn something today. I don't know what it is, but you're going to learn something. And usually the way I learn it, when it's embarrassing to me, then I know I've got a speech, because then I can say, oh my gosh, look what I did. 2019, I talked about racism. Here I am saying, hey, you're racist towards Mexicans. But then I found myself being racist towards a Mexican. And I was so embarrassed, but I was able to make fun of it. And all I wanted my audience to do or take away was the fact that they were like, wow, if she's admitting she's a racist, maybe in some way I am. Because whether we think we are or not, we are all racists. But it's always easy for you to say, look at the mistake I made, instead of, you better not do this. You never want to attack your audience.
So I think the best stories.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Showing our humility and our humanity. Last piece would be, Lisa, and we'll finish out with you and tell us how what is your life lessons that you're working on?
Life lessons that I'm working on right now. Well, I guess I really liked the advice that Mark Brown said, which is, to picture a 5-year-old and what advice would you tell them? And my kids are now 16 and 18, and they're starting head into the world. And so my advice is changing, as they grow. So that's I'm trying to think of things that I would want to go and tell my children.
Well, thank you very much for that, both for Luisa Montalvo, Lisa Traugott, and of course, Amy Samet. Thank you all three for your contribution to the district and for helping us to have successful contests next year. I hope all of you take this information. I will have recordings of it. You can bring it back to your club and encourage everyone from your club to consider getting involved in some way in the contest, especially in the areas of competition where you can learn so much. So thank you all for being here tonight. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ava, for making this all happen for us. And thank you, District 55.